You might never have heard of it, but it's a type of fraud that affects nearly 500,000 vehicles and costs American consumers more than $1 billion every year. It's called odometer fraud. Fraudsters looking to boost profits on the sale of a vehicle roll back the numbers on an odometer, duping buyers into thinking the car has fewer miles on it than it does. American buyers lose an average of $4,000 a year to fraudsters, and most don't even know they have been hit.
We would like to see justice for the individual that pays $45,000 for a car that's only worth $15,000.
Average used vehicle prices rose from about $20,000 in December 2019 to about $27,000 in December 2022. Supply chain disruptions and shortages in new vehicle inventory have pushed more customers to the used market, which in turn is pushing up prices. That's also making used vehicles more scarce.
I can't tell you for sure, but I suspect with the recent surge in used car prices that it's becoming more enticing tactic for scammers.
Anyone can be a victim. And as vehicle technology improves, so does the technology criminals use. This is Kevin Porter. He and his 5 colleagues' jobs are to investigate cases where people tamper with car odometers to defraud customers or dealers. It is a bit of a stealth crime, one that can be very hard to detect.
A lot of our victims, they don't know they're victims until we reach out to them. Often that first interaction is explaining to somebody, this vehicle that you just paid $14,000 for, it could have been bought at auction a week earlier for $1,000.
A single case of odometer fraud can, and usually does, involve several other crimes, which carry their own penalties. For example, every car comes with a title. That title typically has the mileage on the car at the time of sale. If you falsify the mileage on the title to the car, which you pretty much have to do if you change the odometer, you have also committed title fraud. If the vehicle is financed through a loan, and the loan terms factor in the false low mileage as an indicator of value, that's bank fraud. Sometimes a fraudster will buy a car and then sell it without putting their own name on the title in order to avoid detection. That can be charged as aggravated identity theft because they are essentially pretending to be the person they bought the car from. Another example is wire fraud. Say, if the vehicle is posted on the internet, social media, or websites, or if the seller is using text messages to communicate with buyers about the vehicle, then, if you mail the paperwork, that is mail fraud. Odometer fraud carries a maximum sentence of 3 years. But the other forms of fraud that accompany it can increase a prison sentence by years or even decades. Lieutenant Jason Schrader is an inspector with the North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles outside Charlotte.
By the search warrant of a 2008 GMC Yukon.
Like other sworn officers in his department, he carries a gun, a badge, and handcuffs.
All right, let's see what we can do with this one.
Schrader and his colleagues investigate car dealerships, used car lots, auto shops, and any other location where they have reason to believe people are rolling back or otherwise tampering with odometer and title information.
A lot of complaints come from this area of Charlotte right here. Pretty big hotbed for people curb storing cars or selling vehicles, dismantling cars, towing cars, storing cars, anything you can think of with cars.
Once they make arrests, they seize and search vehicles, looking for evidence the odometer has been tampered with.
Search warrant in the matter of a 2010 Jeep Grand Cherokee.
The number of victims in any given case can also be staggering. Cases involving only a few vehicles, and others involving thousands. Sometimes a customer with a lease will roll back an odometer before turning the car back in order to keep the car under the mileage specified by the lease term. Sometimes a dealership will roll back an odometer on a used car or a car coming off a lease and then try to sell that car online. Sometimes it's just independent sellers.
We've had cases where individuals buy a higher mileage vehicle, maybe a 300,000 mile SUV. They roll the odometers back to 30,000 miles, and then they'll stage that vehicle out in an accident. And then insurance is paying out at the lower mileage value for the vehicle.
Porter's office has also seen cases where people will roll back odometers to defraud a dealership into thinking work on the car is covered by warranty. About 10.5 million cars on U.S. roads are estimated to have had their odometers tampered with in some way. About 20% of those have had their odometers rolled back, a 7% increase over the previous year.
Everybody from all walks of life could be affected by this. It's not just one demographic of people or one class of people. So this is a typical odometer cluster from some vehicles.
Let's just say hypothetically you had a 2010 Nissan Altima that you wanted to sell. If you went to pull apart and found a matching Nissan Altima with a lot lower mileage on the cluster, you could pull that cluster, take it home and replace it in the car that you have, and now your vehicle's value just increased because the mileage is lower.
It might not seem like a lot, but the average loss to a customer is about $4,000. In addition to the difference in vehicle price, there can also be higher taxes, higher maintenance bills, and higher insurance. Experts think there is a lot of this type of crime going undetected, primarily because it's very difficult to detect.
There's several very prominent cases that I've worked over the past few years where we had hundreds of vehicles involved, but the rollbacks on all those vehicles did not show up on any vehicle history report you could buy.
Fraudsters seek out cars with gaps in their vehicle reporting history, which often includes vehicles serviced at home or vehicles serviced at shops that, for whatever reason, aren't logging and reporting mileage on the car.
They would research the vehicle history. If there was a recent reporting, say within the past 12 months, that blocked them from rolling back the mileage, they wouldn't buy it. They would go on to the next one that had the latest reporting was maybe 3 years ago.
Cars older than 20 years are not required to have their mileage stated on the title. This also makes them attractive targets for fraudsters. Discovery often happens because one customer will notice something wrong with a car and report it to a local consumer protection bureau. From there, a case gets built.
Just enough information to start digging into that dealership, those individuals. There's a tremendous amount of this fraud that's occurring all across the country.
When most odometers were analog counters on the dashboard, rolling back an odometer was a matter of manually turning back the numbered dials.
20 years ago, we could turn the numbers back by hand.
In the children's book and adapted motion picture Matilda, the eponymous character's father brags to the family that he rolls back odometers using a power drill.
Two-directional drill. You run it backwards, the numbers go down. Watch your speedometer.
In the film Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the characters erroneously believe they can roll back miles on an odometer by suspending the car on cinder blocks and running it in reverse.
The miles aren't coming off, going in reverse.
It doesn't end well.
What'd I do?
Today, with digital odometers, the increased technical sophistication of a computerized dashboard has not stymied criminals. Many digital odometers can be manipulated just by plugging a device into a car's computing port and punching in some numbers.
People think everything digital, so everything should be pristine. But the reality is that for a few $100, con artists can buy devices that will let them roll back thousands of miles instantly.
As you can see, I'm on Google, vehicle odometer tools. You have all these different mileage correction odometer adjustment diagnostics tool, professional automotive scanner odometer adjustment tool, $28.99. Odometer mileage correction OBD diagnostic tool, $399 on eBay. So you can see that they range from different manufacturers, different makes, and different pricing depending on how much and how in depth of the technology that you want to get.
Other devices are harder and might require pulling out parts of a dashboard. However, they are far from undefeatable.
There's different levels of skill that it's going to take, but we've not come across a vehicle that can't have its odometer rolled back.
To be clear, buying an odometer correction tool is not illegal. There are cases where you can lawfully use one, such as if your odometer breaks.
The more recent fraud we're seeing involves mileage blockers. These are devices that ship from overseas, that you can download an app for your smartphone and turn your odometer on and off with the click of a button. If you drive your car for 1,000 miles, your odometer is only going to register 100 miles. Obviously, those devices are illegal and should not be used, but we see those in growing numbers showing up here in the United States.
No rolling back is necessary. The owner can still take the car into service shops, allow them to log the miles on the odometer, and eventually sell the car with what looks like a full history of regular service on a low-mileage vehicle, when the actual mileage might be far higher.
Those are the ones that kind of keep you up at night because those are more difficult. There's other ways we get to those individuals that are doing it, those fraudsters.
Ultimately, like other frauds, odometer fraud has real-world impacts on real people.
My dad was actually a victim of odometer fraud. He bought a car out of South Carolina, and the odometer had been rolled back 65,000 miles. And he didn't contact me, he didn't do his research, and he didn't know who the guy was or where he bought it from. It was a very good deal on a vehicle, and he fell for it. So if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And if it doesn't feel good in your gut, then don't do it.